Welcome to Heroic Conversations, the interview channel where we dive deep into the universe of comics, TV, film, and games, one conversation at a time. I'll be your host, Antony Neale, and whether you're a lifelong fan of the comic world or just starting your journey into the multiverse, you've come to the right place. From exclusive interviews to exploring the backstories of some of your favorite characters, I'll be chatting with fans, experts, and even some of the voices behind comic books' most iconic characters. Each episode is packed with insights, interviews, and of course, plenty of hero talk. So grab your shield, put on your super suit, and get ready to swing through the city. It's time for another heroic conversation. Today I'll be joined by Eliah Mountjoy, the voice behind the Winter Soldier new hit game Marvel Rivals.
Snap out of it, Bucky.
We'll be discussing the insights and influences behind the character and the way that the voice came to be. We'll speak about the Winter Soldier's history, his relationships with other characters in the comic book world, and what the character means to him. So join me for a heroic conversation. Right.
There we go.
I'm very nervous. This is my first time.
Yeah,
this is
no
my
worries.
first one. So this is,
I'm happy to be here for the first one.
I'm really happy to have you here for the first one, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's genuinely amazing, the fact that you've done this for me. So what the idea is I'm going to have like a series of questions asking about the influence, the artistic take, reasons why you chose to go different directions, like the process behind it.
Yeah.
How much of you is in the character, how much of the character's in the character, influences and stuff like that. And I'm just going to go through the questions. Have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. It's perfect. It's super casual. I'm happy to talk about it. So it's great.
Well, I mean, as you know, obviously, I think you're brilliant as the Winter Soldier. I think the voice is spot on.
Thank
you. As soon as the game came out, obviously people gravitate towards some kind of main character when they play the game. And it's obviously the Marvel universe is massive. There's a lot of characters to pick from.
Yes.
I mean, the
That's
roster coming up.
Yeah,
no, there is I think the game could go on for years and years. So obviously because there's such a massive roster already it launched with 33 characters.
Right.
Which is incredible considering, usually you get maybe about 12 or something.
Right.
But 33 characters, everyone's gravitating towards a certain character. I found myself very naturally gravitating towards the Winter Soldier because I personally love him as a character.
Mm-hmm.
And I love my best friend likes playing as Captain America, so it felt right to have that dynamic on the actual, while playing the
pairing.
Game. It's a nice pairing, and the voice lines between them's lovely as well because you get that history of the characters through the voice lines. And obviously, even if you don't know the characters that well, the voice lines are brilliant because they bring that natural connection between the two of them. So I guess one of my first questions would be: was it just you recording? Did you speak to the other actors, stuff like that?
No, it's just me. That's how they do it. Almost all of VO is recorded in isolation. Almost all of it. A lot of animation used to bring in the cast or whoever's in that scene because you work off of each other. It is better that way. It's better that way. But it's also harder because if one person flubs or drops a line or you get some click or sound, the whole thing is a bust. So I think that they're just better. They just do it in isolation. So Brian Bloom is who did the voice for Cap. Yeah. And I mean, he's amazing. And he's been doing Cap for, I don't know, a decade or more, perhaps. So he knows that character.
Yeah.
So I would have loved to have done that. I think you get so much more from that because it's the real human experience. It's like we're doing now. We're talking, we're working off of each other. That's what acting is. It's acting is reacting, they say. So they say something, I say something and it goes back and forth, and you're just watching kind of a tabletop tennis or a match of, something that makes sense within that own contained space. So that's the trick of voiceover, having to have that genuine, I'm talking to somebody there without having anybody there. It's kind of a tricky trick.
Because that's brilliant. Because when you're listening to the voice lines in the game, it does sound like you are having a conversation between two
Mm.
best friends that have been
Mm.
there for like decades, and
Yeah.
it's that's a skill then, having a fake conversation in a sense.
It's like, it is I mean, it's something we all have. We all have it, on whatever level. It's just kind of learning to hone in on it. I mean, one of the things that was given to me was, what would you do if you were actually talking to that person? I mean, if you know the history behind Captain and Bucky, Steve and Bucky, how they came up together, and Bucky basically brought Steve up
Yeah,
and kind of looked after him, and then the whole Hydra thing, and then Bucky loses his arm, then Steve thinks he's dead, and then they both go into the cryo freeze, and then they both have been lived for 100 years, and then they come back together, and Bucky doesn't remember.
yeah,
So Captain brings Bucky back, and you see this really great arc. It's actually more of a waveform. It's up and down. It's up and down. It's like life, like real friendships. It's like up and down, up and down. I think it's just think it's so great that that's the dynamic they have, and if you know that, you going into it, because like you said, this is Marvel. I mean,
yeah.
it's like a pantheon. It's like its own mythology now. These are our gods, and this is what they do, and we know their history and their lore, and
And all the characters and stuff.
yeah, yeah. And if you
Yeah,
know that, then you can be like, okay, um, this is how I would react to my long lost friend. We got, we have hardships behind us. We have, he saved me also. I've saved him. He owes me one. I owe him one. And it makes
yeah.
a real, genuine, complex relationship.
And I think it's really nice as well because like voice lines with other characters like Namor and that, where it comes out and it's like, what about the time on the Defenders and stuff like that? Or is it the Invaders? It's the Invaders, isn't it? With
Oh yeah,
Bucky, Cap, and the original Human Torch and Namor. I think that's nice as well because it means that they have cemented the history in the game. And obviously, people that necessarily don't know the history can perk up from that and go, "Well, that sounds actually quite interesting." I'll look into the Invaders because I didn't know Bucky and Namor would be on a team together. And then people can kind of take that, and that's the beauty of the Marvel universe. Like you said, it's like a pantheon where people can just kind of look at one thing. I mean, there's so much history behind each character that listens to the little voice lines that they do brings out so much, and it has like such a mountain of structure and mythos behind it. Yes, it's
I hear.
brilliant. So when it came to preparing to voice Bucky, obviously Bucky being quite a cemented character in Marvel now, obviously with the comics, it was he was brought back as the Winter Soldier, and there was that whole mystery behind his character when he was first written again by Ed Brubaker.
Ah,
So
good for you
he,
for knowing that.
yeah, that's like I'm a massive fan of the Winter Soldier. He's massive to me. So did you do any like reading any comics or looking at the histories and stuff? Obviously, you've got the MCU as well, which is obviously a
Mm.
massive thing that a lot of people kind of their interest of Marvel peaks with that. So just where did your kind of influences come from for Bucky?
Wow, it's a good question. Well, I grew up on comic books. It was really the only thing I could read when I was a kid that could capture my attention. Regular books were too difficult for me. I just couldn't stay with it. I get lost.
Mm.
I read the same paragraph over and over and over. So it was comic books, and that's what got me linked into story and character. Um, and I read a lot of Marvel. I read a lot of DC, and I read a lot of Dark Horse and stuff. But so I'm sure that there's a connection there in terms of influence, for sure, undeniably. But I also think that I've always been attracted to the macabre, the darker characters, the more complex
Mm.
characters. I loved Darth Vader as a kid.
Yeah,
I just, especially in Jedi, when you see that he's not all bad and
you
that
see
Luke was right.
that good side of him,
Yes.
and then the fact that it's further explored, obviously, in the prequels, and you see this fleshed out good character, and then you kind of follow his journey into seeing why he becomes flawed and why he
Yes.
becomes a bad guy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Exactly.
100%. Yeah,
It's a similar thing with Bucky. He was a bad guy,
Yeah.
assassinating everybody, the ultimate assassin of assassins,
Yeah.
an assassin's assassin. And and then, one of his lines is like, something along the lines of, I hope that whatever I've done can't be undone, something like that.
Yeah.
And and I love that. I love that about that character. I love the theme of redemption. I love that it's never too late to try and become the person that you want to be.
Mm.
I love that. Personally, I love that mythically. I just like that theme. So I think I got really lucky getting Bucky because, I mean, yeah, Captain is awesome,
Yeah.
but he's always Cap,
He's Boy Scout Cap, isn't he? Boy
Yes,
Scout. Yeah.
that's it. Boy Scout,
He's
Eagle
always
Scout.
good. I think the only
Yeah,
time Captain America's ever been bad was when they wrote him bad as
right.
Hydra Cap. I think
That's
they did
right.
like an alternate version
That's
where
right.
he was Hydra instead.
That's
And
right.
that, I think, thinking off the top of my head, I mean, I feel like people are going to come for me. That's the only time that I believe Captain America's been bad.
Yeah,
Whereas obviously, like you said, Bucky was the assassin of assassins. He was
yeah,
the trained one, obviously working in the Red Room, and he trained assassins to be assassins. He
yeah.
was like the model.
Ultimate assassin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like he was trained to be the weapon.
NetEase did a great job doing that, and they're a Chinese company,
Yeah.
so they're trying to get this American lore. I know that they did hire a branch of Marvel
Mm.
to make sure they get it right.
Yeah.
I'll be damned if they did. They got it right. And I'm also amazed that they, took this existing body of work, the Marvel universe,
Yeah.
but then seem to have found a way to kind of balance it in gameplay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, I see what you mean. Yeah.
You've got the duelists and the tanks and the healers, and you need to have a combination. Otherwise, you're going to be lopsided, and this team is going to have a better chance at. I mean, that's just so many moving parts.
It
I'm
is.
just so
It is
impressed by
amazing.
that.
It's just like being catapulted into this massive. Like it was announced, and I remember when it was announced, and I mean, I was personally excited because I think the last proper Marvel game I probably played, other than the Lego ones, was probably like Ultimate Alliance, which is what kind of this game feels like. You've
Uh,
got that. You have to work as a team to get the objective and win the game in a sense, which I think is brilliant, and it brings
mhm.
home that Marvel Universe message of when you're together, you're stronger.
Yeah,
That's the massive message.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. They definitely got that, and I'm with you. I love that. Stronger together.
Mm. What's your favorite voice line you recorded for Bucky?
I mean, there's a couple, and it's along the same lines of what I was talking about earlier
Mm.
about redemption, and I already told you the I've done unspeakable things, but I hope it's not too late to set them right. That
Yeah.
thing. But I like it's I should probably have these better at the tip of my tongue. But
I can
it's
I can I can give you my one if that helps.
okay,
One of my
okay.
favorites. So one of my favorites at the moment is an interaction between Mr. Fantastic and Bucky,
Hmm.
where Reed Richards obviously goes, once we've done this, can I run a few tests on your arm? And then Bucky just kind of like a, pushing it away kind of thing in a polite way. He's very much just like, Hydra's torn me apart and put me back together multiple times. I've had a lifetime of that. I
Yeah,
don't want it to be done. And then Reed replies like, okay, I just kind of wanted to, this is paraphrasing. I just kind of wanted to check if Hydra's put anything inside you still. And then Bucky's response is just very much, it wouldn't be the first time. And it's that kind of tragic story
yeah,
in such a simple exchange, but
yeah,
it's got a lot of
yeah,
gravity to it.
yeah. That's what I love it. I love that,
Yeah.
and it's part of that's part of what I think you were mentioning earlier. Like, what do I bring to the role?
Yeah.
That's who I am. I feel like I've been broken down and had things taken from me. Fortunately, not a bunch of cybernetic things inserted into me, but you get the point. There's having to overcome this,
Yeah.
but it's never gonna be gone.
You gotta
It's
hold on
always
to
gonna
it
be
and
there. It's always
keep it
gonna
with
be
you.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like I'm holding on to the pain or the trauma, but it's always there. and you're always working to make yourself a better person and not let the shadow overtake you. But it's part of being. It did remind me of one of the other lines. Weapons keep getting better, but I'm still the person behind them that matters the most, or something along those lines.
He says it. Weapons keep getting better, but it depends on the person behind them. That's what matters the most. Yeah,
that's the one.
Because that has you could give. I mean, you could give anybody a cybernetic arm, and obviously in the game, unlike the comics, obviously he's got the tentacles coming out of it, and he has that a lot more power behind it. But then obviously he's in the lore and stuff, he's doing it for good. Whereas it depends on who's behind it, because I don't know if one of the biggest villains or something got hold of that, and the damage it can cause.
Yeah.
It's that mentality of being, like you said earlier, the good guy, because he is a good guy. Bucky's down, inside. He is a good person. He wants to do right by everything. He wants to prove to maybe himself and others that he isn't just the weapon that Hydra made him to be, which, obviously, like we've talked about, you get those hints throughout the game, throughout the gameplay, and throughout the voice lines. You can hear it, which is, I think, why obviously I've congratulated on you doing such a fantastic job of bringing this character that, was obviously been on comics to life in a different light to maybe, like Sebastian Stan of the MCU has, where he's very much, he's got this inner turmoil, but he has, hours to display it. Whereas with, you've done it in, voice lines in an animated game, where, they're, like I said, they're little just conversations that if you're not paying attention, you might not hear, but then you'll hear them as the game goes on. Which obviously, which you've said, that's what you brought. You brought that, I've got this pain, I've got this trauma. I'm not just gonna say it's not part of me. I'm gonna hold on to it, and I think that's kind of what channels Bucky, if that makes sense. I feel like that's what provides him with that righteousness to do the right thing.
Yeah, and that's what I love so much about it too. What do you do with this time given to you, to do a Tolkien quote? All we must worry about is what the time that we, or what the time, or what is given to us. And like you're saying, it can be used for evil, it can be used for good, and for a period of time it was used for evil, but it's because he was being used for evil. And he still realizes he's just in this continuum, and at some point he can change that chain.
He can choose the path that he wants to go down, not the people that are controlling him.
Or the one that was chosen for him.
100%. And I think,
I love that.
Like I've said, with the voice lines and obviously the lore that NetEase have given in these little stories that you can read, I think you have that character just blown up in a sense, where, and I think they've done it with every character, where they've given them kind of like a spotlight in certain moments where you go, right, okay, this is this character. And like I said, you don't have to know the history to kind of figure out what's going on, because obviously you've got the map of the Hydra base, and 9 times out of 10 that's when Bucky will say a line about Hydra, and he goes I think he says to Cap about, let's take down Hydra one more time together, and then Cap says something Boy Scouty and very Captain America, powerful and inspiring, and Bucky's like, and it's again that lovely bond where you can see that relationship, and you can see that Bucky's trying to do the right thing. And that's all he wants to do. And it's brilliant.
What I love about that is that it seems to be it's because it's a human thing. These dynamics, these friendships, these relationships, it's human. It breaks down these borders of this nation or that nation, in the same way that Greek mythology or Norwegian Viking mythology, there's something you go, this echoes of humanity, and we can all find a way to unify in what that is,
and connect with each other. On as people say, a human level. And
that's what art should do.
100%.
Pull us together.
Everyone gets brought together. Now, one thing that obviously has brought a lot of people together within the community is obviously Bucky's ult.
Armed and dangerous.
Which is, I'm sure you've heard multiple times with fan art and videos of people, the fact that an ultimate line, like you've got this ultimate power, you've released it, and the line from that has influenced artists to make art. I mean, I think majority of people have seen that picture of Bucky going again or armed and dangerous, and there's just Jeff the Shark looking at him like that. It's brilliant because I mean I've gone through Reddit pages and stuff where that picture shows up all the time, and it's that art from a voice line from a game, and it brings so many people together. It's really nice to see with Armed and Dangerous, and then the again, and then the fact that it just keeps going. Like it's brilliant. And I mean, seeing how I love looking into things, maybe too deep.
Okay.
But when Bucky obviously shouts Armed and Dangerous, and he keeps shouting again, and I don't know. I think now there is one question I do want to ask before I carry on. With the again line, did you only record the one?
No, that's not the only one I've recorded. So the way that they generally do those big ones is at the end of the session, because you're going to blow it out.
That's the big one.
Yeah. So your voice is not going to be exactly the same after that.
Yeah.
So save it to the end of the session, and you only will give 2 or 3, 4, maybe 5, because you're just redlining it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big noise.
Yeah, and you do one, and the director will say, I mean, they'll show you the animatic.
That's pretty cool. So they'll show you him like launched in the air like that.
Yeah,
so you can
super helpful.
See, I think you can hear that when you are performing it, when you do it, because you can hear it's like a charge up in a sense.
Exactly.
The armed is like, I feel like, there's like a armed, and then he goes, and dangerous, and then it's like he goes. See, that was my impression, No notes. So you've got that kind of, the arms going up, which is when obviously Bucky's going up, and then you've got the and dangerous when he crashes down, and and then the again it's that same kind of vocal pattern where it's it goes like again, and you can hear that the throat in it, the anger, because obviously Bucky's an angry character, and you can you can really hear that in that ultimate line when he's shouting that, and then he's shouting again. And then the reason why I wanted to ask about that was because when he says again, with that anger, you can also kind of hear the pain.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was your intention or if I'm just picking apart a voice line.
Well, there's something else that you talked about earlier, which is, how much is me and how much is the character. And I don't know that I can answer that quantitatively, except that some of it is me, some of it is the character. And that's the way that that's how it works. It's all kind of rolled into one. I have had the chance to train with a lot of very dangerous people, just in terms of doing some motion capture training or just survival training. Yeah, working with ex-Navy SEALs and people that are very, very dangerous.
Yeah, like people who have that skill set to be dangerous. Yeah.
People that could just kill you with their hands right now if they wanted to. Yeah. And that it gives you a certain amount of humility, especially me, because I'm a tall male and I don't usually have to worry about that my whole life. But when you're suddenly put into that position, you're like, there are some very dangerous people in this world, and the way that they're very chill people. They're very chill. Very dangerous people know what they're capable of, and they don't have to prove.
Yeah.
But when they flip into that mode, it's like
a completely different person.
They go into berserker mode.
Yeah. Which is, I'm presuming that's what you've done with Bucky, where a lot of his voice lines are very, calm and they're very stoic, and you can hear every single word that he's saying because he's a calm person. He's gone through all this stuff in the past. He's trying to move forward, so he's holding it.
Yes.
And then I'm presuming that one means then when that voice line comes out and that ultimate comes out, that's like the finishing in a sense, and he knows what he has to do. So it's like, that's when he just projects it. Yeah.
Yep. That's when it all gets let out. All that pressure cooker that's held in, it just all comes out
and just explodes in one go.
And then it's because you can see the the animatic, the animation, you know,
Yeah.
you could see like the wind up again, and you
Yeah.
can, and then you can just let, and you know that this is your chance to like let it all out. So, but you know, it's not just, but it's not like you're saying, it's not just screaming. The
It's
characters in
throwing
there,
it. Yeah.
it's, you feel the pain behind it. You feel the rage, where the rage comes from. It's not just mindless.
Yeah.
It's very directed.
It's not just like a scream. It's you can again you can hear each word that he's saying, and you can hear what's behind each word. Because
Yeah.
I think every alt line kind of has that as well, where it's not just a shout. Maybe Wolverine's is, but then again, you can still hear, he's shouting Berserker Rage. I'm not going to do that because that would really throw my voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only one I can think of that's very just rage. But that's
Yeah.
obviously that's Wolverine's character. That's Wolverine's character,
That's Wolverine.
and
I mean, you
that's
think about it, Bucky and Logan are very similar, but I feel like Bucky's more sensitive.
yeah. Bucky has that because obviously Logan was Weapon X. He was also
Uh,
made into a weapon. Um,
right.
but I think, like you just said, Bucky's a lot more sensitive. I think he kind of learned from it and tried to evolve from it. Where I think
Yeah.
Logan's very much just kept it, and
Yeah.
that's his core.
Yeah.
His core is that this happened to me.
Yeah.
I hate everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, Logan obviously has sensitive moments. In
Yeah.
comics and whatnot. He has these touching
Yeah.
moments, but
But he's just more wild and
yeah,
more
he's an animal.
feral.
He's an
Yeah.
animal. That's Wolverine. Where
Yeah.
obviously Bucky, the Winter Soldier, is like we said, he's more sensitive, he's more stoic. He's got that repressed anger and that
Yeah.
repressed hatred for Hydra and
Yeah.
what happened to him, but he internalizes it and uses it for fuel to be good.
Exactly.
Yeah, which I think is brilliant for the character, and obviously you've brought
Yeah.
that to the character, which is phenomenal, to be honest.
Thank you.
As I'm a big fan. um,
Yeah.
so talk about obviously back to influences and stuff. So as you said about the comics, did you take anything from like Sebastian Stan's portrayal of the character or the MCU's portrayal of the character as a whole?
Yeah. I mean, obviously he instantiated the character and
Mm.
kind of stamped the brilliantly. I mean, he's amazing,
Yeah.
and so he did get all those notes of troubled, dark streak, but sensitive, wants to do good, trying to do good.
Yeah.
You can feel all of that from him, and total badass.
Yeah.
So, but also at the same time, he's a relatively new character in terms of the movies, where it
Yeah.
became household instead of just us nerds who read the comic books or whatever. And
Go the nerds.
power of the nerds. So I had a little more latitude, a little more platitude, say than Cap or
Yeah.
Logan, or were there for decades. It's like we are Spidey. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
Magneto, any of these characters, Thor. I mean, it's like this is who they are, and you can put yourself in them. But Bucky, I feel like had a little wider range of who is this.
Yeah.
Psylocke is more new on the scene, so I've
Squirrel
been
Girl, stuff like that as well.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
there's a little more
So you got
play.
the fresh ones where you can kind of mold it into your own, which I think
Yeah, yeah,
people have done. You know,
yeah,
and then you've got the characters that they have their this is the character. Like I mean, if you got, for instance, Captain America, and if you wrote or performed Captain America differently to Captain America, people would notice straight away. It'd be like, well, someone's up with Cap.
yeah,
If you tried to play Captain America as, I don't know, like a Deadpool-esque character, like a cheeky, Merc with a mouth kind of, it wouldn't work. Whereas
right, right.
you could probably get around that with Bucky, where you could play him with that cheeky side, which
Mm-hmm.
I think has been demonstrated in the MCU when obviously they had him as the soldier taking the girls to the fair, and you saw that side to him. Whereas obviously, if you applied that to Cap, it wouldn't
yeah,
flow but right,
yeah,
and people would pick up on it a lot quicker.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, just
that's good.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I think
you know your lore.
I I'm a sucker for it. The reason why I got into Bucky was because of the Winter Soldier film. So
Uh-huh.
I saw him on the film and I was like, like this is a really cool character. This seems
Hmm.
like a deep character.
Yeah,
I want to look into the history of it because
yeah,
obviously you see it in the film, the first and
yeah,
second film, and you're like, okay, so it's like Cap's best mate. He's come back from the dead.
yeah,
Oh, I want to know more about this. So I dug deep into that, which is obviously early when I
yeah,
was saying people kind of going from the game and finding out the lore. It's the same kind of everyone takes a journey to learn these characters, and
yeah,
obviously you said you've come to terms with the characters through like obviously growing up with the comic books as a child and stuff.
yeah,
So you've got that cemented like voice in the back of your head where you know you can internalize the character himself and portray him in a way that is like a celebration of his character.
yeah. And he kind of occupies this archetype of, you know, rogue.
Mm.
You know, he's not all good and he's not all bad. He's
Jaded.
capable of, yeah,
Yeah.
but also, but not like Logan is jaded, you
Yeah.
know, or Magneto, or not like permanently jaded. You can see that he's trying to. So there's shades of gray in there, and I think that something similar happened to you and me, happened to the public when they saw Sebastian Stan,
Mm.
you know, um, play Bucky. There was something about that guy, and I think that there's always something about the zeitgeist, about the times that we're in,
Yeah.
where a particular character becomes of more relevance or importance because everybody's going through some similar thing. Everybody's trying to, the world has gotten to be a harder place in the last 10 years.
It has. It has. Yeah. It
Not
has.
easier, and pe I think people resonate with trying to fight and overcome. I mean, just your personal demons is enough. Add life on top of it, and it becomes a lot, you
It is
know?
a lot. It is a lot. It's heavy.
I
You
think
know.
that Bucky kind of helps people get through get through that more. I mean,
Mm.
it certainly has me. I identify with who he is, where he's come from, and what he's trying to do, and it inspires me to be like, okay, today is what I got. I'm gonna make the best of what I can today.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there with the character of Bucky, where he is, you've got this human character in a sense, which is really, kind of ironic because he's got, this massive tentacle arm.
Right,
No one's got a tentacle arm.
right,
No one has that. But
right.
in a sense, the arm's kind of like a physical embodiment of his trauma.
Mm.
That people have their own, people hold their own. And I think, like you said, it's that relation to the character that makes him so impactful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think you nailed embodying that through the voice that you provided for him.
Thanks. And I'll just add on to that. I got lucky. Lucky Bucky.
Lucky Bucky.
Where it all, like this is not the first character I've played.
Yeah.
And there's been some great characters that I've played. And I've loved playing them. But none so much as Bucky.
Mm.
And I got lucky that this came at this time where I happened to be here at this point, and
It all lined up very nicely and
it
just kind of
lined up.
came to
It lined
this.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be part of that in any way, I just feel so fortunate. And because it could have been another character. It could have been no character at all.
Yeah.
And that's how most of it is. Most of it is you audition, and 90%, 95% of it is a no.
Yeah.
So for this one to be a yes, I feel so grateful because the more I play him, the more I love him.
And that's the best thing about a character is you can feel the love with the character because you've got this, it you can hear the passion in the voice when it's being when you're hearing it playing the game and stuff. And
Yeah.
so that leads me on to quite nicely, like the final question in a sense. So obviously you said about the fact that you got lucky in the auditions and stuff. So first of all, what inspired you to be a voice actor? And then second of all, what advice would you give to somebody if they wanted to get into voice acting?
Hmm. Well, as a kid, I was always making noises, sounds. I was always emulating an ambulance going by or a cockatoo. Yeah, I was always mimically inclined. I loved cartoons. Um, but I always just I loved the arts. I always had more of a penchant
Yeah.
for the arts. So for me, it was I was not going to be a scientist. You know, I was not going to be a mathematician, a physicist. The stars were already kind of written for me that I'm going to be more of a creative. So um, eventually, I got to the point where I had taken an acting class, and I always thought I would be more of a director. But then I took an acting class, and I got the bug. I just I liked stepping into somebody as a character
Yep.
and expressing a story, connecting in that way. It just felt right. And in a time when nothing felt right, I had no idea who I was. It was just reduced to the only thing I had was I'm a storyteller. I just remember scribbling that in some library somewhere, just lost. Lost. Who am I? I don't know. But I know that all I am is a storyteller. So it began with that kernel, just
Yep.
knowing I don't know how this is going to play out or how I'm going to be able to tell stories, but that's who I am. That's who I am into the
You just
vacancy of the
throw it
void.
into the universe.
Yeah, and I mean, it took a long time, a couple of decades, I'd say, before I kind of had an opportunity to do that, and it was started with an acting class where I got to study Shakespeare, Stanislavski. Shakespeare was always lost on me, man. It was I couldn't even read a regular book,
Yeah.
let alone heightened English. But I also, had joined a band because
Mm.
I love music. I love expressing and storytelling in that way. And so eventually somebody was like, you should do voiceover because I think we had like a night, a big like show the previous night. So I was a little more like gravelly. And the misnomer being if you have, if you got a big, huge voice, well, that's radio voice. You should be doing voiceover.
Yeah.
And that's not what it is. It is acting because like what I don't have that Sebastian Stan has is like a gesture or a wink or a look.
Mm.
Everything has to be put everything we've been talking about, the complexity of layers of emotion has to be infused just in the vocal print.
Yeah.
So it's just a different way of telling a story. But it takes a little while to curtail and develop that. So I took a lot of classes, a lot of classes, a lot of classes. But I needed it. Not everybody
Yeah.
needs that many classes, but I did. I just have I'm a slow study, a thick skull. Things don't come to me quickly. I have to get out of my way repeatedly.
Mm.
That's my process. So to answer the second part of your question, I think if somebody's interested in doing voiceover, well, what kind of voiceover do you like? Because
Oh.
there's many different kinds.
Yeah.
There's
Um,
animation is different from interactive, which is what we're talking about now, from promo, from narration, from radio imaging to corporate narration, medical explainers. I mean, they're all very different.
mm.
Most people are like, I like doing voices. I want to be in animation. Everybody wants that.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be in a video game. Those are the fun ones. But you generally want to be like, I'm going to get good at one of these, but it always comes back to the acting. Even if I'd argue, even if you're going to do corporate narration, because you have to connect with somebody. You're conveying a message, some information, and or oftentimes dually an
Mm.
emotion. That's acting. That's acting. So if you love it, take an acting class. Or for me, improv. Improv was huge because it liberated me from being self-censoring, judging, curtailing myself to try and conform to being scared to put myself out there, and trust your intuition and go right with the first thing that comes out. And then take some Shakespeare culture and enrich yourself.
Good old Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So one final question that it made me think of it when you were saying about your love for music. If you could put one song to your iteration of Bucky, or maybe a band or a genre of music, if you can name a song that comes straight to your head, what would it be? And then why?
The first song that came to my head was Touched by Vast. That was the one that came into my head. It's, if you're not familiar with it, it's easy enough to look up, but it's got this balance of beautiful moments with just very metal rock throwdown. And that's who Bucky feels like to me. I'll never find anyone that again. And then
that fluctuation
peter out to
from here to here.
Yeah, he's very he's very chill, or very all destruction, maelstrom, meteors from the sky. So
you do realize now that that's the song that people are going to use.
I hope they do.
They're going to find that song and they're going to go, right, this is the Bucky song.
I hope they do. Yeah.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Antony,
for coming to this. I appreciate it so much.
My pleasure.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.